Hello, welcome to this Eyes of Harmony. Probably like our fifth thoughts, but it's our first thought video. But it's been a while. It's been busy. Lots going on.
Thoughts video.
Yeah.
We are thinking.
We are
therefore
thinking.
we will relay those to you.
Those that care, which is probably a very few, but we still have them. So yeah, Vanquishers, the final episode, episode 6, and the finale of Jodie's final season, which is kind of crazy to say out loud, but yeah. So yes, now with these big kind of serialized stories, the finale is always the most important one.
Very important.
And going into it, I think we were already aware that it was unlikely that everything was going to be satisfactorily tied up.
It was simply way too much.
It was
too
crowded.
We were saying that the last podcast. Yeah, it was just...
It was too crowded. But I'm very much in two minds over this. And I'm kind of, in a way, reflecting a lot over just the whole era at the minute. So I kind of, before we go into all of, like, Vanquishers, my main, like, feeling at the minute is, like, Jodie's era is just a very classic era of Doctor Who. And when I say that, is what I mean is if this came out in, like, the 70s, it would be perfectly fit in that kind of era where you don't, well, maybe more the 80s, but they don't over go into like companions' backgrounds, you know, characters are kind of secondary. Like, I can't really think, bar maybe one or a couple, but you know, there's some like classic stories where I wouldn't be able to tell you one side character's name. And I feel like that very much with like the Jodie era. There's like side characters aren't the strongest, and I feel like it's just kind of that. I'm not saying like there's this isn't a diss to the classic era either. I love the 80s era. I absolutely love Colin Baker and that era as well. But I just really feel like this is like the most classic Who that we've had since the revival, in terms of like important plot details are kind of just spoken and not shown. Like, you know, there's a couple times where, you know, you get Peter Davison's Doctor just explaining what has happened and what has caused this effect. And the you know, we've saved the day, but I've just actually just explained how we've saved the day rather than showing it. And that is exactly what has kind of happened in this Flux episode. That, you know, they stopped the Flux, but they didn't, if you're not listening, and this happens in classic Who as well, if you like are not listening, you will miss so much. And that is the same with this series. If you miss a line, you're fucked, kind of thing. Like that is ultimately the case. Like so many people I saw on Twitter with this Flux thing are like, so wait, the universe is destroyed? And I did think that for a little bit until I remembered that Swarm and Azure were reversing it back to the start and then doing it all over again. And the Sontarans wanted to find the position where the Flux started so that the Dalek, you know, like that happened. So actually, the Azure and Swarm saved the universe and then we're going to destroy it again. But like the Doctor then stopped it with a passenger form at the very beginning of it happening. It all makes sense, but it's just not shown and explained well enough.
Well,
that it gets lost on people, on a lot of people, and I think that is ultimately the issue. Like, if you did not pick up at the very beginning of the episode that that's what Azure and Swarm were doing, then like that ending is basically like, wait, there's only Earth left and the rest of the universe is destroyed. No.
The episode certainly doesn't make that easy at all to sort of grasp onto, just on account of its pacing and overall plot things. Like, constantly, I was finding it very, very difficult to actually, like, focus on anything that's going on. Like, I think so much of it, I was like, okay, don't focus. What's going,
Yeah, I found that.
You know, there was it was going so fast because there was like
there was no pauses.
There was no real entire through line, and I mean, you know, I guess it'd be going more specific into the plot details, but like it never really gave a chance for like, okay, this connects to this, and this is a this is a progression here. It's just like, now we're here, now we're there, now we're somewhere else, now we're here. Oh, this on this planet. Oh, and this is happening to this person. Oh, but this is happening here, and it's like,
It
can't both
was
play at this.
there was no time to like digest anything that was happening. I think
Mm.
that was the issue with it. There was no moment to be like, right, like a good example of like a really busy episode which has a moment to breathe is the Stolen Earth, and it is when the Doctor and Donna are lost. They can't find the Earth because it's the second out. They have this bit where they're just in the TARDIS and it's like it's just gone, and you have this like low bit before they all start ringing, and it's like the calm before then this really amazing kind of build up, and that's what this kind of episode needed. Or in the two moments where there were quite strong emotional beats, like the last of Lipari, which was really like, yeah, it's the last of his kind.
Oh,
Anyway,
Anyway,
it's like that Jeremy Clarkson meme. It was literally like, that's sad. Anyway, like move on. And like Jericho's death, which was really good until 2 points. One, that nobody really reacted too long for it.
Yeah.
And then they added a really terrible ADR. I don't know why it was there, of just the Doctor going, Jericho. It's like, and it was like, it felt kind of like half-hearted. I get we would have been
like,
just better.
We still got this character.
Just pure silence. It's like, oh, you've probably forgotten his name, so let's just say it. Jericho, no.
Yeah, well, he didn't really like. I mean, they'll say there's a few characters in this, but like ultimately didn't really impact this. Well, in particular, this part of the story. It was almost like, why did we need this many characters?
The Mole Man, completely like he's like
Mole Man, Kate Stewart as well is entirely worthless in this story. Like, it's really cool to see her again, but like,
what does she do?
They could have picked a much well, exactly. It's a mess. Like, I think I said to this. I really think. I mean, I guess we'll start transition to the more specifics, but like the whole splitting the Doctor into 3 and having 3 different plot lines running at the same time. I think it was just the fact that there was like 3 or 4 scripts, maybe even 5 scripts, judging by the amount of plot threads in here written. It feels like almost, although I guess we get to 10, but like it feels like they perhaps started writing Flux even with the thought that, okay, maybe we could keep the episode count the same, but we'd have to introduce more, have to write it in a way to where social distancing measures and such had to be in place, right? But potentially partway through production, they were like, well, crap, we can't do this. We simply don't have, I don't know, time, money, whatever, to actually film all these episodes. What do we do? Well, we'll take the last 4 scripts, rip out every single key scene, and then shove it into one episode. But how are we going to do that? The Doctor's in all of these different places. How can we do it? We'll just have her be there. She'll just be everywhere. It'll be fine. And it really, really wasn't. Oh, gosh. This is probably one of my least favourite... Well... of the era, perhaps, if not. Gosh, I mean, I've had so long to think about it. It's almost still difficult to process exactly just what I watched. I was like sitting there in utter disbelief at the sheer. Like, I thought it might be a train wreck, right? Sort of a clusterfuck. I said that like last week. It was worse than sort of even my lowest expectations, because as you say, like, you really, really need to focus in order to make anything sort of comprehensive. But the episode made it so difficult for you to be able to focus, and what was there was so like, okay, this happened, now move on. Oh, it's here. And the bits where they do spend like ages like focusing on, like we got like, as in the way charming as it was, like, we could have got like several other things explained in the time which we used to mess about with a Sontar and eating chocolate, for example. It's like, in an episode with this constraint of time limits, we don't need a thing like that to sort of slow down well, to where we could have used that time somewhere else if that we were that strict on time. It
Well,
just
it's like
on
the whole Bell and Vinda thing felt
mm,
so like they did nothing
yeah,
in this
pointless. Like,
finale. Like,
well, it makes their
really
overall
little.
journey just very pointless because like it felt like they were building up to something. Like we'd
Yeah,
speculated, perhaps worriedly, that they'd be the Doctor's parents. I'm fine that they're not, very
yeah.
fine. But well, but assuming that they don't suddenly return later on, it's revealed. Oh, surprise! Because we
Nah,
still
I
have
think that's
another
it.
three episodes. But but um, still, like the fact that they left them as they did just makes them feel like what was the point? And I say that a lot with like a lot of the plot threads that they had throughout Flux, like
What was the point?
the actual the Ravagers. What was the point? All this stuff about the division. Ultimately, I guess they were sort of the big threat, but like it felt like in the episode itself that like
I think
really
you
the
could
bigger
have.
threat was the Sontarans. It's
Yeah,
like the division were defeated, like so was sort of I don't know about wiped out exactly, but like they were their plans were hindered like pretty darn quickly, and
mm,
it's like everything that it felt like the season was building up to just sort of was concluded and either barely concluded or concluded in such an unsatisfying way to where I just felt so empty at the end of this. I just
yeah. I think. Just yeah. I think my other 2 points was like even the Grand Serpent, right?
okay.
He gets exiled. We don't even see his reaction to it because it's such like a quick cut. It's like door slams and he goes, and then boom. Like no, like doctor, like come on, like
Yeah.
a good example of like an exile ending is okay. Dalek Master Plan when the meddling monk gets stuck on the iceberg. You get that moment where they realize, holy shit, and you actually get them like, or even recently, which was written by Chibnall, which was Spyfall Part 2, where the Master gets stuck in that other world and he's like,
Yeah.
screams out,
He
Doctor,
reacts.
like you need that moment where
Yeah.
it's like that's the sweet bit, the actual reaction that they give that they're
Yeah.
trapped. Like that is when you're like, yes, eat it,
And
sucker.
and
And we didn't get
granted
that.
granted people are speculating that might not be the end of him in
But it
particular.
doesn't matter.
But
Like you want if it
yeah.
is, you want that reaction. Like
Mm.
there's no payoff.
Yeah. If
Imagine if like when like in Endgame Tony Stark just snapped his fingers, and then rather than seeing all of Thanos and everyone fade away, they're just gone. Like it cuts back, and they're just gone. You don't see them fade to dust. Like how unsatisfactory would that
just
be?
fades to white and then everybody's just a
That's it.
plastic.
Yeah, that's it. Like
Wasn't it great how we dealt with Thanos?
yeah,
Yeah.
like
We totally kicked his butt. Yeah, we
right,
totally did.
like
And we did it, blah, 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 blah,
yeah.
which is what would happen in this. It's just, they just explain
They just
it.
explain it. Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, I feel like so that was that, and yeah, I did. Okay, the other thing I was really annoyed about was the whole like still not looking at the memories and the watch. I'm like, you've just spent so long getting this. Like that's been the whole thing of this like the special, and this is you've been grouchy moody about it, and now you just put it down the garbage.
Yeah.
I know it's not garbage dispenser, but it
Yeah.
almost was like that.
Pretty much. I mean, Grant, yeah. I feel like if again, this would have been if we'd had time to breathe, but if the Doctor had sort of gotten a small glimpse of things and things she might not like, very negative things about her past, like just a hint to it,
Deciding not to
and
look.
then
Yeah.
and then it's just like, okay, maybe I don't want to know all this. Maybe it's better if I just keep moving forward and forget about all this because we barely got anything more in this finale. Like we were hoping to get some answers, but what did we get? Well, they sort of talk about the house a little bit.
They should
They
have just not
dismantle
had
the
the
house. They
Sontarans.
rebuild the house. They dismantle the house. They rebuild the house,
Yeah,
and then like
that was them trying to show what they were doing with the flux and the whole universe. Saying like
yeah,
that was what I can see what he was trying to do. Saying,
yeah,
look, I can destroy it and then put it back together again. And that was how they were trying to like
yeah,
get across that that's what they're doing to the
yeah.
universe. But they just never showed.
Hmm.
All they needed was a shot of a flux working backwards to a center point. Like that's all
Yeah.
they needed,
Hmm.
and yet
Something
they
like that.
didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't show all the planets coming back and all the people who were running, being destroyed in the first one. They should have shown that
Hmm.
all coming back. That would have been such a great
Hmm.
representation. And you only need like 30 seconds, and it's a pretty like integral
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. And
And
that's
like
what we said about what was it, Battle of Ranskor, whatever. Is
Kolos,
that
yeah.
yeah, the fact that they took all the planets in their back, like we got nobody's reaction to that, left it feeling okay.
Well, yeah,
Was there ever really a threat? Did they ever really feel anything? Was there ever really like that much stakes to it? And that's sort of the same here, right?
and this is what I mean. It just feels like classic Doctor Who, like the
I
classic
think it's
era.
even
Because
worse thought
no,
out though.
because say like some, I can see it now. Imagine that story in like the 80s on an 80s budget, and they're shrinking planets. You just see it on a screen. You wouldn't see on the planet, right?
Yes.
Like, and this is why. And like the more I reflect on this current era, it's like Chibnall's just stuck in the 80s. He's still
Yeah.
writing for a show which is being produced on an 80s budget. And
Yeah,
that
kind
is
of.
what he's writing for. He's not writing for like
Plus,
this. He's
plus
writing for that.
he's trying to write that, but also on a much stricter time limit than they had back then.
Yeah.
Where you can't have like, oh, if you want a longer episode, we'll just give in more parts or
Yeah.
whatever. He's writing it for like an hour.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to write a story of this sort of ambition, with as you say, the way he's writing it, it makes it like practically like very, very difficult to get it right.
For sure.
And again, I don't really think he did.
So
there's so many other things we can say. Like Dallas and Cybermen are so stupid. Like, why would they just trust Soldaras like that?
well, yeah. Well, that is my argument with this. I did like the Sontaran's plan. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really strategic. And the one thing I will say that Chibnall did get right was Sontarans. He did write them very well. Like the whole chocolate thing. Some people are like, but I can see that happening. Like, look at.
I agree.
It's basically look at our own politicians and the Christmas party. Like, literally, it is like that, right? It is like that for their own fucking personal game. They'll do fucking anything. It was
waste
weird.
Of time.
It was
a waste of time in an episode with this
Yes.
much time constraints.
Yes.
Is the point I was making about
that. That is a fair. Yeah, that's a different thing. But yeah, to those who are complaining about the whole thing, I think it's very Sontaran to be like weird and into that. I mean, and Dan Stark is just so good at the comedy. It would be weird to not do that. But anyway, I've really enjoyed like the dialogue, and I really like their plan. I thought it was cool. I could see somewhat the Daleks and the Cybermen like almost doing that, and I think this is what's leading into the eve of the Daleks. I think when the flux was hitting them, they did an emergency temporal shift, and that's what's going to cause this like time loop thing, almost like the flux got stuck in this thing and caused this issue. Seeing as it's like kind of the next story, it would make sense to me, but maybe it's going to be completely separate.
Yeah, but I mean, the point I was trying to make there was that surely, like for example, a race as logical as Cybermen would surely know the Sontaran, have studied the Sontarans well enough to know they're not necessarily going to be telling the truth on this point. Like, why would then you like maybe send some ships, but like, why would you send your entire fleet to a position which is completely...
I think, well, maybe it wasn't their whole fleet. I mean, but a large majority of it. I think you'd run the probability, right, of are we going to survive the flux? No. So you take like at least this option will survive.
Yeah.
And then we can like, But it's weird. Surely they just invade the Lipari ships, because if like the Sontarans know about the Lipari ships being strong enough against the flux, then surely
everyone else does.
Simon and Daleks. And if a Lipari can build antimatter protected ships, I'm pretty sure the Daleks who've built time machines probably could also do the same.
Well, so just as an aside, like the antimatter thing, like did you like for a minute I was just like, wait, we're talking about antimatter.
I was thinking Omega.
Sides. Yeah, I was about to say.
I was thinking Omega.
I was like, were they actually gonna have Omega at the center of all this? And that would have maybe made the finale a bit of like
interesting. I would have hated
granted,
it,
they probably
it wouldn't have been enough time for it.
Well, exactly. I was about to say we wouldn't have
But
simply
honestly,
had.
if you got rid of the Grand Serpent
Yeah,
and you got rid, like, okay, really, from this finale episode, the only things that should have been happening was Azure and Swarm.
yeah,
There shouldn't have been a Sontaran invasion. There shouldn't have been any of that. It should have literally have been just those elements. Because if you actually take back to saving the day, and actually
yeah,
anything that's gained from it, all that really needed to happen was the flux was reversed, which Swarm and Azure did, and if we spent a bit more time seeing that, we would have, the audiences would have understood it more. And then using a passenger form, which is very much connected to, you know, Azure and Swarm, to end it. That's the actually the only major things that really happened. That whole Sontaran invasion and the Daleks, that didn't need to happen at all.
no. It
Like
was just
generally,
additional.
it was all tied up. The rest of it, like it was just a weird. This is a finale. We need lots of big stuff in here, which is ironic from someone who wrote such a small, focused finale like Battle of Arab Kolos, whatever. Because that was such a small, focused story, and now it's weird that he's decided to go. Oh, now I need to go the other way and go like fucking
make
throw
it
everything into it. Like I get wanting to
Yeah.
go big, but it's like it was the threat was big enough already with like the end of a fucking universe. Like that's
It
pretty
didn't need
big.
everything.
And like
Yeah.
the thing that really I didn't quite get was time. Like, so is this
the embodiment of time?
yeah, the embodiment of time, and it was in like the concept was so interesting, yet they did nothing with it.
2 seconds, yeeted, you know, the
Yeeted the main
Swarm
threats.
Azure out of there, and then was just sort of like, hey, you're gonna die, Doctor, you're gonna die, and then was out of there.
Because you know the master of time, eh?
Yeah, it was like
Time's a dick. Like, why? Like,
yeah.
was there any like? It would have been nice for some like reason behind that personality. A bit like like it would have been interesting if they kind of connected it to like the frog from like It Takes You Away and kind of a whole universe embodied in like this kind of entity, right? It would have been interesting to do something like that, but yeah, again, there was like no fucking time for anything to be explained.
Exactly.
And
There was
if
zero.
you just got rid of a whole Sontaran thing, and also by the way, in the bloody second episode, they used a Sontaran ship to crash into the rest of the ships to destroy the fleet, but now a Lopari ship can get stopped with a force field straight away. I mean,
maybe you could say
there were no Sontarans on the ships. I guess that would be my thing. But it's like, come on, the same writer wrote these 2 episodes, and you've got a force field now protecting it, and you've got a
or maybe they saw what happened last time. Were like, okay, let's make the shields better. Maybe. I don't know.
Without it being said, like you just can't.
We have barely even mentioned. Yeah.
Also, the Doctor just causing genocide 3 times over. Just saying.
Oh yeah.
Even though the Doctor in episode 2 was like, you can't blow up Sontarans, but you can just leave them in the way of an explosion.
Yeah, as
long as you don't put the explosion there, like it's not your fault if you trap them with said explosion.
Yeah, she does not get to stand on the moral high ground with the. Yeah.
I mean, though, to be honest, like, and it's fine. Like, I'm fine with the Doctor, like, somewhat doing this sometimes. Like, yes, these are big and bad threats who aren't good for the universe, right? And like we've always had this mix. Like the Doctor will have to kill people sometimes, and that's just the hard challenge of being this godlike figure who goes through time.
Yeah.
But the issue is how like one moment it's like morals and da 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 and blah de blah, and then suddenly it's like the other way. But I mean, we've had this kind of contradiction. Before in other eras.
I hate conspiracies. I love conspiracy.
Yeah, that's one of the worst. Yeah. Like Jesus Christ, like please just keep, like just have a big have a big bloody whiteboard of things Doctor is against and things she's for. Now none of your little Aye.
Barely even mentioned a lot of the Earths, like particularly the tunnels, because it's like so insignificant to the plot.
Just like, as I say, like
they
the main
built up
things.
Joseph Williamson so much, and then it's like we get there, it's like
and also
stand about
the date of it happening, the 5th of December. Why was it anything apart from just the date that the episode was airing? Like, sure, okay. Dan got rejected, and then they decided that what was weird, right? Was they decided to put John Bishop back in his life for however long, like a week, I
Mm.
guess, and then decide to take him on a trip.
Yeah.
And also, the TARDIS is still fucked. No one gonna mention that. Like,
Yeah, it was. They never addressed the whole like the door appearing in random places and such. Like, what was up with that?
was
Like,
that the flux that was causing that?
was
Like
it
the
something
damage,
else?
or
Because they never firmly
and it's like
like
the Doctor like
established.
isn't like bothered about it, which is weird.
No,
It's like,
and in the way it was nice to finally see her opening up to Yaz too, like
oh,
about it.
I
But at
like
the
that
same time, it
scene.
also, yeah. But at the same time, it also
The acting was
like
solid across the
yeah, the
board.
action was solid. Oh, no doubt. Although, like throughout most of the episode, it was very difficult to appreciate when
Yes,
you're
because
like
too much. Yeah,
so lost in the mess.
Jodie was
But
killing it
that,
though. Like for
oh yeah,
what she had,
absolutely.
especially like the. I guess this is a multi-Doctor story, but anyway,
I guess, yeah.
but like she was doing great. I just want to put that out there, like
Oh yeah, sure.
the
For what we
pacing and all that
had.
aside, and like production design and all that looks great. Everything on that side, I
Oh
can't
yeah,
complain
yeah.
about. But it's just it's
It's
ultimately
just
just
very difficult to appreciate when everything else around it is kind of just a chaotic mess.
and yeah. So this is why I'm kind of conflicted over Flux or not, because I'm like, if this was in the '80s, like. And we were going back, like Jodie was the actual Sixth Doctor, and this
Hmm.
is a series from that time. And I bought the classic DVD and I watched it. I could see myself really enjoying this story. Like, this is the weird thing about it. Like, I'm really in two minds about it because I'm like,
I
it's just because we're in such a different era of Doctor Who now, and what we're so used to. But yes, it was messy and
I
speedy and all
Yeah,
that.
well, exactly.
But
I still think even then,
but
like
I
the
can
whole
see why people are enjoying it. That's the difference. Like I
mm,
can really
well,
see
people.
that like there is like it is Doctor Who just of a really
Yeah.
different era, and it's weird. It's
Mm,
just really
I,
weird, and I don't
yeah.
think it works for modern audiences. That's the
Mm,
difference.
I wouldn't just say that, but because like if you think back to a classic story, I mean, like I could see that you could say that about most of the other stories this series. I can see that. Not for this one though,
This one's
because
super. Yes,
the fact is that the classic series, if nothing else, was longer and more focused on its end goal. Whether or not that end goal was good or not, it would commit to it over a series of weeks, over the
mm,
length of time that it would have. If that story was bad, then it was several weeks of,
bad. Yeah.
slowly miserable watching of like, you know, the episode. If it was good, then it was a long build up to really interesting concepts and well developed like world within those episodes and such. I don't feel like this episode does any of that though. It's
Not this
chaotic. It's
specific one.
fast. It doesn't have time to progress or talk about anything. Like you know, like there is the companions are like sort of a non-entity in this story in particular. Like yeah, I agree. If you look at the season as a whole, I do agree that I can definitely see shades of it. And I mean, I think even from the beginning of Jodie's era, like
Oh no, like the whole era of Jodie's.
The first season, I felt like I think I mentioned at the time felt very almost like 60s, almost very Hartnell
It
in a
was trying to
way.
be Hartnell, I think.
Yeah, and then I think they did start to you know deem on like yeah, as you say, like something closer to an 80s sort of story, particularly um during some of the
It's just Peter
yeah.
Davison, three companions that you really actually know really little
Mm.
about. You sort of know their
Yeah.
jobs, but other
The
than that,
difference,
it's just their personality. That's the
yeah,
character.
well, exactly. But the difference being is that they made that interesting to a certain extent by having them not be a harmonious group, being kind of a
Yes,
bickering,
that was the
which
slight
they
different.
didn't. They
Yeah,
didn't really do with Jodie's Doctor until like way later on,
yeah,
basically. Where Yaz was like questioning the Doctor and
yeah,
yeah, not basically until like the last New Year's special, pretty much. Actually,
yeah,
did they sort of that harmonious group sort of start to properly, I guess, shatter? You know, which
yeah.
yeah does make the whole dynamic more interesting compared to what it was before. But I don't feel like again that had sufficient time here. Like if we'd had like another few episodes where like Yaz and Doctor and maybe they get to the point which they do at the end of this episode where the Doctor finally opens up, that might have been more satisfying. But like, yeah, the Doctor gets back, she hugs Yaz, and then like they're immediately thrust into the adventure rather than having any time to sort of talk between each
And
other
then
about anything.
yeah,
And the Doctor doesn't seem to have necessarily had a moment of like great revelation of like a and that was also the same with the fob watch, right? If we'd had more time with her, maybe her putting it away in the TARDIS might have made more sense if they had more scenes, if we'd had more of a hint as to why there might be a reason for her not to open the watch, but also a reason why now is the moment to tell Yaz about it. I feel like we could have had a much more satisfying, again, much satisfying inclusion to those like arcs that we've been having. Instead, like the just because whatever reason, like this episode just can't. Like I said, they just tried way too much
it
to
should have
do
been
in an
90
hour.
minutes. It should have been 90
At the
minutes for me.
least, but even then, I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
too short. I think it needed like 2, 3, yeah, maybe even 4 more episodes to properly
I
like.
think the biggest issue I think is that he had to come up with this character of the Grand Serpent because he realized what he originally wanted to do with series 3 was probably this unit storyline, right?
Hmm,
And I like now looking at it now, it really feels like he was like shit, well I still need to kind of get this unit thing
did he though?
back to where it was. Well, yeah, because he cancelled fucking Unit, and
Oh
I think
yeah,
he
no,
wanted
true.
to conclude it, right? And at this
Hmm,
point, he probably thought, okay, well, if the rumors are true, and he always planned for this free series and out thing,
hmm.
then yeah, and then he was like, well, shit, I've kind of set this thing up, and I need to pay it off.
Well,
How can I tie this thing into it all? And that's what it
hmm,
feels like, because
yeah,
that unit came to nothing. Like
yeah,
literally, they weren't
hmm,
even in the episode apart from
yeah,
Kate. He wasn't
yeah.
even really representing Unit. She was
Well,
representing the
exactly.
underground resistance against Sontarans, which we
Those,
saw them
yeah.
doing nothing.
Yeah, that was the most interesting part of last week. But like, I think the better thing would have been to just cut Vinder and Bell and just have the
Oh yeah,
unit thing take their place throughout the whole series,
yeah. Just have
rather than
this
just throwing
mysterious
it in last
character.
minute. Yeah, well, exactly. Rather than just throw this whole thing in last minute and then like have to very quickly conclude it here without really much of any time spent on it. Period. Right.
It's kind of ironic that actually probably the Grand Serpent thing you could have just actually told, not shown. Like I know usually
Pretty
it's
much.
show don't tell, but honestly, it would have been more interesting having this this man just show up in the past and start like building this thing and being like, oh, why is he doing this? Because
Yeah,
he actually
a little
explained
bit.
it pretty well. Whereas like when the Doctor, when he was interrogating, right, when the Doctor was
Hmm.
being interrogated by the Grand Serpent, worked really well. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah, it
like,
did.
and she
But I
was like,
still
oh,
don't really.
dictator, da da da, you lost your empire. Like that's all
Hmm.
we needed, and then
Yeah.
you could have got
Hmm.
rid of
True.
Bell and Vinder. And this whole thing, like, what was it? Chibnall was like, oh, Vinder, he comes in and he breaks your heart. Like, where the fuck did Vinder break my heart? Or what point?
There was they hug, Nick. They
Ah,
hugged.
and she was pregnant. She is the only
She was
person
pregnant.
to ever be pregnant ever. So it's
Wow,
such a big
yeah.
thing.
I know,
Like,
right?
like cool. It's like they just feel like classic Doctor Who characters, which are just like not super developed. Like it just
Yeah.
like it's just such a weird like. It is. It's completely like an 80s
Mm.
writing style. It's
A really
writing.
bad 80s
Yes,
style, but
it's writing for like that. Oh, we're filming
Mm,
in Live Grove. Kind of, we've got like
mm,
3 sets around the studio.
mm,
That's your budget. That is what it feels like it's written for. Like
mm.
it's not actually thinking, hey, we could show this. Like
Yeah.
and that was what always Russell T did so well, was he always
Mm,
showed the impact that things were happening.
absolutely.
And that's, yeah, and I can understand a lot of confusion over people thinking that the universe is still destroyed.
Yeah, I thought that too, basically, until you mentioned it just now. I
Right?
like didn't like I knew about them, what their plan to reverse and reverse and reverse it for the final flux, but like I thought that was just for the final flux, right? I didn't I thought the initial flux still happened, and like part of the universe was still destroyed, but then the final flux that would take the rest of it was the one that was on the continuous loop. Is what I thought was going on.
Well, now that you say that, now I'm questioning it. Like, this is the issue. Like, I think it was the very initial one, right? Because that's what they said. They're gonna go back to the beginning and then, destroy it over and over again because that's what they wanted. And it was fun. They basically enjoyed that. Well, sure, fair enough. If you're an evil being of destruction, why not? I mean,
Yeah, and granted that little like moment with Azure, wasn't it? Like with the whole like saying why
yeah,
was again nice, but
I love
still
them.
we
They
don't
were
feel like
just defeated so shit.
defeated very easily, and like we just simply didn't get enough time, I guess, with them to sort of flesh them out.
Yeah.
I don't feel like so many episodes they were just like standing on hilltops absorbing people, right? In like multiple
Yeah.
episodes. So it's like
Why bother? Oh, because they were using them to power
yeah.
the thing to then send them onto the division ship. Yeah, that's why they were doing that.
I
Right.
guess so.
Like, yeah, it's just that last bit. Like, is it the whole universe? Like, did they repair the whole universe and then it got stopped, or was it like multiple? Because to me, it was like, well, if you were sending this antimatter cloud destroying the whole universe, you'd start at a point and it would just spread out and destroy everything. Like, that's how it would work. Like, it would be weird, but then it makes sense that if it is antimatter, that eventually it would burn out itself. So you would have to send multiple. But if you put a big enough cloud that it could destroy the whole thing,
that's what they were saying, right? They were saying that in the episode. So like Tung Tai-yun was saying like, oh, you got in the way, you stopped the initial flux, now we're going to be sending out the final flux. And then I'm pretty sure that they were saying, yeah, she got in the way and then stopped like Earth and some of the rest of the universe from being destroyed. And then like what they were going to do and what the Doctor was trying to prevent from happening was the division sending out the final flux, the one that would take the rest of it. And she was getting you to mitigate the damage, and then she was getting all the stuff in the way. And I'm pretty sure, I think that was what they were trying to put on repeat, was that final like last round destruction through the universe rather than the flux from the very very beginning. But I could be wrong like that too. That was what I got out of it though.
I'm trying to read what it says on Wikipedia, see if they've got it. Using the
At least use a Doctor Who wiki, Nick.
I mean, it'd be interesting if they're the same. Even the flux of consumed absorbed by the passenger form.
Use a Doctor Who one's a bit more comprehensive.
Yeah, this one's not comprehensive at all. Bloody hell!
No.
Like, yeah, this is the issue. Like, just not clear at all. Like, and the Doctor doesn't even like flap an eyelid about it. Like,
no.
I know it's been stopped, but like, did a lot of people die? Like, what kind of fucking happened?
I think people would have had to have died, particularly the people absorbed by the suits, right?
Yeah.
They're all dead.
I'm just wondering about the planet. Like, yeah. Because, I mean, just to show, like, it being reversed by, like, Swarm and shit, like... it's just the fuck's... Oh, I don't know. I don't know, and this is the issue. It's just like and I need to.
I expected the fugitive Doctor to be in here somewhere, considering they brought her back for like very, very briefly as a sort of side thing, and then she didn't appear at all. Like I was shocked.
Weird. She must be showing up in like well, either in this one, even in the New Year special, because like.
Yeah,
it depends how much like this. I mean, I like the idea of a plot. I like Groundhog Day stuff. Like, pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
You know, I like that they're getting exterminated over and over and over again. Like, that's pretty cool. Like,
no, I love time loop stories. I love Groundhog Day. I love that one episode of Marvel What If where they had it. You know, there's other things that have done it. And
Happy Death Day did it very well. That was very good.
Yeah, no, I love time loop stories. So I am quite looking forward to that. Just on the topic of like the future Doctor stuff, which I don't think probably will like turn up in the Dalek one, maybe like another one, but like I can see that whole plot line going two ways, like with the whole like dropping the fob watching and such. Either that's something that happens, maybe even the centenary, to where like we have like that sort of fully like explored, and the future of Doctor explored, and the fob watch maybe finally opened and such.
Mm.
Or the other way I see it going is that Chibnall's leaving it there as a potential for future writers to go ahead and do more with it, and so they just, as if they should choose to do so. I could see it potentially going either way. To be honest, I don't really
I
know.
think, I mean, Chibnall's apparently said like things won't all be wrapped up this series. I'm guessing it will be all the centenary. That's my guess.
Probably.
I think that, the Master, obviously, the whole last
Oh
thing
yeah.
was the timeless thing, and we know that the Master's back in the finale, in like the final story, which is kind of like, yeah, fine, I guess. Though the Master
Cool.
keeps being there at the Doctor's kind of regeneration stories, which is getting a bit old now.
Yeah.
We've kind of
Yeah. I
had
mean,
the
it was.
10th, the 12th, and now the 13th. It's like, can we just do it like an original kind of,
Yeah.
just
Get
out of
someone
nowhere
else. Get
regeneration?
someone else. Yeah. Like anybody else,
Just a
right? I mean,
unique
it
monster.
was. It's always effective in the way to have a master at like their generation, but not this often, right? The Gopper Boys was effective. End of Time, it sort of
It made
worked
sense for
out
that. Yeah.
because of the way that the whole storyline kind of went towards it. Doctor Falls was great, of course. So
Yeah. At least like the Master wasn't actually like the main cause of it, I suppose. But they were like a huge factor to Bill getting turned into a Cyberman, and
yes,
that it's like it's just nice to at least I somewhat like Time of the Doctor, and at least like it was different in
yeah,
terms of like so those ones like no Master, like because Master episodes just have a very kind of way that they go about them, and
yeah.
you
And
know
granted, not everyone follows the same patterns, but
it would be just nice to have something different.
it
No
would. It
Daleks
would.
in a regeneration, like at least like in End of Time there was no Daleks. That was nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we get another Dalek New Year's special, of
well, I
course,
don't
which is
mind that.
like
That's kind of like a thing. And at least, you know
mm,
what? I'd prefer like a 60-minute, 70-minute Dalek story. Like, to me, that's kind of,
mm,
at least you got some more time to work with them.
yeah,
Not that
yeah,
they're,
and
they've been
one of the few,
fine.
yeah, the Daleks are one of the few like I think things that have really sort of genuinely been handled quite well over this era. Like the Dalek I mean, beyond like the weird CG Daleks earlier in this series, so
Yeah.
fair. But like in terms of their own individual episodes, and whatever the heck happened in this story, but like their actual own specials have been like made them really menacing and really like an effective threat throughout. Like even if I haven't always enjoyed all of them, like I always get the names muddled, but like I like the first one a lot. The second one,
Resolution was solid. I watched that again
Resolution was
recently.
really good.
I
Yeah,
really
I still
enjoyed that
really
one, actually.
I
One
still
of my
really like
favorite
that
of
one.
this era. Yeah, that would
The
be one of
last
them.
one though was a bit iffy. But...
Yeah, what was it? Revolution of the Daleks.
Yeah, it's just yeah. Again, another one which kind of felt unsatisfying, but
Yeah, I think there was some I really loved, like the police using it. I thought like that was great
yeah,
imagery,
it was a great idea.
but
They were like building up to like a new sort of Dalek Civil War almost like Remembrance, only without like a lot of the impact that Remembrance
yeah,
had.
it was mainly just a doctor killing a TARDIS, even though they're living beings, and a bit
Yeah.
mean. A bit mean, like, yep, I'm just gonna destroy you. And it was a good way to defeat the Daleks, but it was a bit of a oversight of.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it was a bit, yeah. But yeah, I am looking forward to the next one a little bit. Although it's I still feel kind of empty after this episode because it's just like is it really right for me to feel like excited? It's like I felt excited by episode 2 of this series, and the rest of the series is like
it's
beating it
kind
out of me. It's like no,
no.
don't feel good, don't feel good. No, it's
You like these characters? No. Stop it.
Yeah, it hurts. But anyway, and I'm glad to see that they've, I guess, now fully committed to the gold Daleks again in a way, with a cool kind of Gatling gun, which is neat.
The new gun's cool. I hope for a new design or just at least a different color scheme when Russell T comes back.
What
But
didn't they have kind of a different color?
they're still the
Actually,
bronze.
no,
Like I just want
the
like a.
picture's still the bronze. Yeah.
But I'm hoping new budget with Bad Wolf and everything. I think they'll be a bit more pumped into it.
I mean,
Um,
I like all the decals and such, and I don't feel the need that they need to maybe change that, but like different color schemes,
I
like
wouldn't mind just the black and silver again. I feel like
yeah,
at least
black and
like they did
silver,
they kind of did that with the kind of drone Daleks, the
mm,
impure Daleks or
yeah,
whatever in
or like
Revolution.
the straight up like maybe remembrance
Or
of
go
the
like the white and gold ones,
white and
or
gold's cool,
Genesis. Genesis, yeah.
or I was thinking
Just
Genesis
go,
because
just
the dark grays that for me like
I
the
just wouldn't.
Genesis colors and design is and like the way they shot them and honestly the voices too is probably I think never been more effective than they were in Genesis. Like that was probably their most
I'd
threatening
like.
and terrifying.
I would like a timeline again between stories. Like
Hmm,
I
that'd be
found
nice.
it just made every time that they showed up a bit more like, where are you in your history right now?
Yeah.
And it was, it really worked with the Daleks, especially like in the early seasons, because obviously, like, okay, you're out of a time war, you've survived. That's where you are
Yeah.
in your timeline of all of Doctor Who. We can easily place you here, but like the Daleks from here, where is this Dalek? Is this before Magician's
Mhm.
Apprentice? Is this The Witch's Familiar? Are
Yeah.
you before this? Are you after? Like, where are
Yeah.
you? Where are you in your like time stream? Like,
And I mean, that was sort of always a thing with the Daleks.
was
Is that
Davros at the
sometimes,
Flux?
sometimes there was continuity. Like actually, mainly in the classic series, mainly when Davros was involved, there
Yeah, there
was
was
a through
continuity with
line.
them. Yeah.
Before that, it was a little bit more spotty. Although they would sometimes like go, "Oh, you did this here and
In the
that
black and white
there."
era, they always referenced it. Like I've been going through
Yeah,
William Hartnell, and actually they always say, "Oh, this is the year. They've done this. They've done that."
hmm,
And it's like I wouldn't mind that again. I wouldn't
that'd be
mind an
nice.
episode set in their early days. Like just to have the silver
Yeah,
and blue Daleks show up. Like
yeah.
why not? Just
I
make
mean,
them
you
look
already
more
had them on
polished.
screen again,
Yeah.
right? With the yeah.
And like we've shown that you can do the Mondasian Cybermen and like
Hmm,
make them look cool and
hmm,
fine on TV. Nobody batted a bloody eyelid at them.
yeah.
They look creepy,
Hmm.
and Daleks are Daleks. Like at the
And
end of the
again,
day, they
I
just
I
look
feel
like they
like,
look.
as I said, I don't think they've ever looked as scary, been as threatening as they were in Genesis. And so if they can even slightly recapture that feeling with like a potential sort of like something that kind of resembles or calls back to that design, then I think that'd be really cool because
But yeah.
that was like I said, yeah.
Anyway, they're completely different conversations.
True,
Anyway,
yeah.
way far off of Flux. But yeah, only three of this
Completely,
era.
yeah, that's true.
Only three of this era left, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm kind of like still excited for it because I'm like, you know
Mm.
what? It's almost like the end of this era
No.
and onto RTD2. So I'm just taking it as it comes. I think in retrospective, I'll look at this series and I think I've kind of landed where I'm comfortable with it, where it's just a modern
Mm.
day 80s series and it's been written
Mm.
for that era and it's been made in this era and that's why it feels weird. But
Yeah, but
you know,
I don't think that excuses a lot
no,
of the
no,
flaws,
no, it doesn't
and I
excuse
think
it.
that does it somewhat of a disservice. Particularly if we're referring to this episode, does somewhat of a disservice to that era in
No,
which
I'm
there
not
was.
saying like this is a strong episode from that era. What I'm
Mm,
saying is it's a child of that era, if that makes sense. So I'm not like there's episodes in the classics era from that era which are way better than this one, straight up. But the writing style and like, the revelations, everything, that is completely yeah, of like that era. 80s era, it's like is not a
yeah.
good of that era, but like, kind of not developed characters,
Mm,
telling, not showing. It's like it is
yeah.
like that. It has been written for
A
that
little
era
bit.
without being actually from for that era.
Yeah.
That time of television writing.
But I don't think. yeah,
But
I
that is
think
better from this of
it,
80s Who, which,
it's
you
better
know,
from 82, and I don't think that should excuse a lot of the things here. It shouldn't just,
no, I mean, there should
I
be
guess,
people
write it
looking at
off.
this being like, why the hell aren't we showing this? I'm confused by
Well,
what's happening here.
exactly.
Like,
Well,
does anyone read the scripts before, like,
yeah,
they're going into
exactly.
production? Like, I feel
I
like
oh,
these
again,
is.
I still don't think I have a script editor, do they? Yeah, I said it when like we froze. I actually could have put on a point, but I think ultimately I'm not going to look back very fondly on this series, to be honest. Like there was a hope, there was a serious hope after War of the Sontarans. I did enjoy Halloween Apocalypse well enough, and War of the Sontarans was really good. But it's just like it's in a slow descent for me after that point, and I'm just week after week just feeling worse and worse about it, to where ultimately, I'm, and particularly the way it finished,
I think this has been
I'm
how you
I
felt
think I think
every season though of this era. I think it's basically
I
been
think
that
so. I
start
think so.
hopeful and then kind of yeah.
It's just that, like in other series, I guess there was more episodes that I could enjoy. Like I think like you know, like it was a bit splattered throughout, and yeah, granted, I didn't enjoy the year as a whole, but like like I can pick out episodes in series 11 and 12, which I find really good, and that I'd be happily like rewatch on the day. It's not like I'm like here like all of this is awful. Don't watch it. There's nothing of value here. It's just that you take the series as a whole, like particularly this series, and especially when you've got like two, arguably even or three episodes building up to like three or four, even like building up to a finale. Solely dedicated to building up to the finale, which utterly fails. It's like ultimately, what value of this series is there? Once the finale falls flat. And for me, it's just War of the Sontarans. That's the only thing I think I can take from this and say, yeah, I'd happily watch this again. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy this, because the rest of it, once the
I
finale falls, it's like a house. Yeah, it's like a deck of house of cards. The whole thing just collapses.
I think I could
And that's what I feel
enjoy.
like for me. So
I think I could enjoy. I think four of them. I think the only ones I didn't. I like Halloween. War of the Satara is obviously the best. Um, Village of Angels. I know they went down the division route and whatever.
yeah,
And while it doesn't lead to much, actually in the long run of things, it's sort of still Village of Angels still has like their kind of that frame, and it's still somewhat like it is somewhat separate. Like you can now, like with the Sontarans coming back, you can actually go, okay, well actually War of Sontarans is way connected. We kind of thought that was it for Sontarans.
mm,
So it felt a bit more definitive. Like that is just kind of a standoff
sure,
lone story. So I think Angels in hindsight, actually there were lots of elements I did enjoy. I just thought it was kind of wild how much they went into the history of the like going back to like 10 years ago, and
mm,
like just using rules that were made in that, and just like they just threw all the rules in there that had ever been
mm,
made, and
yeah,
then more. Like it was just crazy like how much I know, like it was like, hey, look how much Weeping Angel trivia I
mm,
know. Like
yeah,
we can watch the DVD too,
and it was.
but
And granted, again, some of it could have worked in terms of like being this unstoppable, like descending force. And there were moments where you sort of got that, but
yeah, I just think
it
it's
was just
just
a bit
yeah. I
much. It was a
think,
bit
but
much.
I'm like we're hitting like an hour on this, and I think we've kind of said our first thoughts on it. Like
Yeah,
it is what it is, and it's
mm,
like
it
you take
hurts.
it.
It hurts real
There's always
bad.
going to be dips in anything. Nothing can
Yeah,
go on highs for so long.
I
Actually, like
know.
series 6 and 7. Like I
Yeah.
was doing my Doctor Who watch along. I finished series 5, and I started series 6, and I actually just had no want to watch it. And like,
Mm,
and now in like my mind, I'm like, you know what? I really don't like series 6. And I
mm.
remember us talking about it on the playground all that time ago, and actually being kind of like almost this kind of level
Yeah.
of exasperated with it. And like
Mm,
then I kind of
yeah.
went off for a few years. I was like, you know what, actually I think series 6 is alright, but actually
Mm,
I really just, and same with 7, like
mm.
again, just
I
like
think, yeah. in both
There's
they
like
have
bits I
bright
like, yeah,
spots,
and
but
I could say the same with like this whole era. And I think
sure,
it's like that
agreed.
is it's just what it is. You have seasons which are going to be great, and you're going to have seasons which are going to be not great, and it's
Yeah.
just that is just how it is. And you just
Mm.
it's looking for the gold among the rest of it, basically. And
Mm.
this era has had plenty of gold in itself.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for the next. That's what Doctor Who's all
Yeah.
about, change. And yeah, I'm excited for it. I can't bloody wait. So we
Mm.
got one more year, and then
Yeah.
Russell T.
I
Literally, we're under a year from Russell T Davies' first scene that
mm.
is written, because it's
Because
obviously been like written at this point to
oh yeah.
hopefully end the centenary. So
Mm.
how fucking sick is that? Like
Yeah.
under a year to Russell T's
Mm.
first scene back on Doctor
Yeah.
Who, and
It's
like
cool.
he hinted, didn't he? Someone said something about wanting to be a writer or something on something that he wrote, and he was like, oh, I should sit in a, he was talking about his very first job and how he like just sat in a cafe and coffee, wrote out a script
Mm.
for something or whatever. And someone was like,
Mm.
oh, so I should do that to, write Doctor Who. It was like, that'll be me on Monday, winky face. So like Russell T Davies is writing Doctor Who
Right
as
now.
we speak. Isn't that
Yeah.
fucking awesome? Isn't that so
That's
awesome?
cool.
So there are lots to smile about.
Yeah.
I
And I
think.
bet we're probably gonna find out the Doctor soon enough,
I
right?
think
They can't hold off on that too long.
I think either they'll try and reveal it after the special. Um, I mean, like they're gonna have to start shooting at some point. I mean, it depends.
Mm.
It really depends what they're doing. If they want to do a series before the 60th, or the 60th is gonna be Russell's first episode, and then like it leads straight into a series, or is it gonna be, uh, like the 60th Christmas special? I really hope they bring back Christmas
That'd
specials,
be nice.
and then spring series, and then it's back in the spring, and then consistently in the spring, because it will be, because with Bad Wolf producing it, they'll be able to handle yearly production,
Yes. Yes.
because that's ultimately the problem. BBC Studios can't handle all of its dramas at
Oh,
once,
clearly.
and like
Clearly.
that's okay. Like you don't always have to be this powerhouse that can just like Marvel, which is just boom 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 boom, right?
Yeah.
That's difficult. It's difficult to do that. So I'm so glad that they've gone back to Bad Wolf, because I think BBC realise that Doctor Who can be way bigger than it is.
They can. Absolutely.
Like they've got one of the biggest fan platforms in the world. Like you can do spin-offs, you can do all of it. You just need someone bloody helping you make it. And yeah,
Yeah. The right vision, the right
and Bad Wolf we know can do it. So
Hmm.
I'm so confident for the future, and I'm so happy that it's not Chibnall doing the 60th anniversary.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, cool. He's still getting to do like a special centenary. That's cool. Nice for him. I'm glad.
Yeah.
But I care more about the 60th. And
Yeah.
I'm really
But
happy
have
that
you enjoyed his
Russell.
era?
I
Yeah.
think Russell deserves the an anniversary special way
Yeah.
more. Like just because he brought
Yeah.
it back, what he did for the show. Like it was always weird to me, that Stephen Moffat was writing the 50th. Like I was like, but Russell T was such like this impactful thing, and then
Yeah.
he left just before this big special. Like 3 years,
Well, not
but
just before.
like 3 years is pretty close than being like 7 years away or something. I mean,
Yeah.
Chibnall's leaving a year before. It's kind of strange, but
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. But yeah, anyway,
Mm.
that's enough of that. I've
Yeah.
said everything I've got to say on this series.
More or
Fine.
less. Yeah.
Fine. I'll probably watch it again someday and be like, wow, yeah, they completely could have cut this and that and so on. But enjoy moments of it. I really like John
Yeah.
Bishop.
Yeah. Again, shame that he didn't really end up having much purpose this series, to be honest.
What about all his plastering that he did and got bollocks?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I
saying-
forgot about that. Yeah, calling out for the dog for the.
Yeah. Anyway, right. Your screen's frozen, so I'm gonna cut it there.
Has it? Oh, okay.
Yep. So we'll
That's all
see.
good for me.
I don't know what's happening this end, but we'll see you next time, guys. Boy,
Boy.
comrades waving. You just can't probably see it.
Yeah, trust me.
There we go.